Welcome to Belonging at the Top, driving performance through people. The podcast where leadership gets real and people come first. Your hosts are Dr. Natalie Parks, psychologist, behavior analyst, best-selling author, and your go-to expert for dismantling systems of injustice while building equitable, high-performing teams. And Anthony Butler, leadership coach, thought leader, speaker, and master of helping leaders unlock their team's full potential, one breakthrough at a time. Together, they're here to tackle your toughest leadership challenges with just the right mix of science, strategy, and a sprinkle of humor. In this episode, Ernest Davis, the creator of the CHORD Framework, joins the Belonging at the Top podcast. Ernest shares his leadership journey and his thoughts on why being human-centered is critical for leaders.
Welcome back to another episode of Belonging at the Top. We are here with Dr. Parks, Natalie. We're in, where are we? We're in D.C. this time.
We are in D.C.
So we're lucky to be together again in the same room, recording another session for our loyal listeners. And since we're my home turf now, at least where I currently live is home turf, St. Louis is still home. But since we're in my stomping ground, inviting some other folks here to join us in studio. So today I went to my Urban League inner circle and invited he's our third guest now. Yeah. And it will be Ernest Davis joining us to talk about his leadership journey, some work that he's doing, and how that fits into our topic of belonging and what it means for him as well. So that's Ernest, welcome.
Thank you.
Adding sound effects.
Thank you. Shout out to GBLA.
Shout out to GBLA. Yes. The crew. They will appreciate this when they see it.
Yeah.
And listen to it later.
Yeah.
Y'all better be listening. Anyway, so we always start off with the same exact question, Ernest, and that is to kind of tell us about your leadership journey.
Okay.
That can be as broad as narrow as you want.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so just tell us about your leadership journey and what got you to where you are now.
Wow, that is a very broad question. So first off, thank you for having me. It truly is an honor to be here.
We're excited that you're here.
Thank you. So my leadership journey basically began at Johns Hopkins Hospital, actually.
You born there?
No. I'm joking. But I am from Baltimore, born and raised in Baltimore. You might hear the accent; it comes out ever so often.
I heard it just then.
Yeah. There's no T in it. But it started at Johns Hopkins, actually. I was pursuing my undergrad degree, and an opportunity came for me to teach some young men how to tie ties, right? And it was for a workforce development project at Hopkins to help employees that were kind of like making minimum wage and above to get some higher paying roles at the company, right? And the young lady who was leading the program, she didn't know how to tie ties, and I had to dress for my job, so she asked me to come teach the men how to tie ties. That then led on discovering that I love training, right? And the excitement, the joy that people had after I taught them and after the classes and all those other things led me basically to realize that there was power in helping someone bridge a gap, right? And I explored that because I was on the path of IT, right? I was going to be straight IT. When I went to Morgan, shout out to the magnificent national treasure, Morgan State University. When I went to Morgan, my class was the first class that began like the internet, like teaching us the internet, right? So I knew that technology was the way that I was going to go, but I had that experience that was still like there, and I wanted to find a way to be able to bridge the two. So doing some searches, I'm maybe one of the last generations that dedicated themselves to the library, but the library and the beginning of the internet, I found out about technical training, and from there I just continued and kept going and navigated myself within that space. And I then found out about change management and all that became, and just kind of rose from there.
So first things first, I was at Hopkins as well, but on the Kennedy Krieger side with the developmental disabilities. So
I forgot you did live in Baltimore.
I did live in Baltimore.
Did you?
Yes.
Nice.
Randomly, like 2 minutes from me after I moved to Baltimore from St. Louis, she moved a few years later.
Yep.
Nice.
I used to take the train to work, and you thought I was crazy.
Thought you were crazy.
But I like what you said about bridging the gap.
I literally just wrote that down as a note, as a follow-up.
Yeah, and how, just from a leadership perspective, from a belonging perspective, is it really is all about the people. When you find the people who are not quite belong, how do you bridge that gap? And you did it, I think, also thinking just about those opportunities come that you're not planning for that then change your life. You got brought in and learned how much you love to train because you dress nice. And I mean, but you know, and somebody was like, I don't know how to tie a tie. You tie ties. Like, you look good, you tie ties, so can you come teach? And just understanding that sometimes it's about how we show up day to day that helps create certain opportunities for it can be life-changing.
And not only that, though, and that, like, we just had a recent conversation about this too, is that that's, again, part of that natural leadership thing that occurs as well, right? Like, you don't have to have a title to have influence, power, and be a leader. And so even if you didn't have the title, you were still in school, finding your own professional path, you were still in a position to create culture for someone, to create belonging for someone. That's why I wrote down, when you said you're like the power that comes with bridging the gap, you were creating belonging for those young men who didn't know how, right? So now they would have the benefit of going into a space and having the security of knowing that I belong here because I know how to dress the proper way. I know how to do it myself. And that is another way of adding to culture and belonging without being the designated leader, right? And so I think those are some of the things, that's what I take from that early part of your career, that we should probably highlight more as a culture, that you don't need the title. In order to have that influence. You don't need a title to be a good team member.
Exactly.
You don't need a title to help somebody else along.
Exactly.
Right? So I think, and that's, and again, going back to your shout out to GBLA, I think we probably exuded that in that group, right? Not all of us were leaders of the organization, but we all gave to the organization. We all were giving to our projects. We were all doing something to help not only better the community, but each other as a group too. So I think that's something that is not unique, but something, again, that we should highlight. Yeah.
The biggest thing that I learned from all of that was, like, when I went in to train, I didn't know any, like, formal training things that I know now. Like, I didn't know gains or how to form an objective or a terminal objective in the Navy. I didn't know any of that stuff. But what I did was I cared about the people. And it was that passion about caring about the people that allowed the connection to begin. And from that connection, I learned that I was able to get people to change without having to know anything technical. Now, of course, I went and learned all the technical stuff as I matriculated in my career, if you will. But I learned that the basis of anything is that connection with people and the actual person itself within any organization. And just from later experience, I realized that there's a disconnect there. And I saw opportunity to be able to impart change management methodologies and other disciplines to formalize what I'm doing now.
It's interesting because I think right now we're also seeing kind of society as a culture. We're looking at the education system and especially higher education as it becomes more and more unattainable for people. Is when you think about what we all went to school for, maybe except me because I do have a psychology degree, so I was taught to connect with people. But outside of that, it focuses more on the technical aspect of it, right? I'm even thinking about my behavior analytic training was on the science and the problem solving model. And I think what even leadership training programs, masters in business and things like that, you're focused on leadership skills. Why aren't there any classes that say this is how you learn to connect with people? Because connection really is our most powerful tool.
I agree. I think they're starting to do that now. I think that the money and all the lost money that is happening now, people are starting to kind of, and businesses are starting to realize that we can't keep doing the same thing expecting a different result, right? There's a disconnect here, right? I'm quite sure we all know about the McKinsey study that says 70% of all change initiatives fail, transformation initiatives fail. And when you do some further research into that, you realize that it's all people focused, it's all people related, right? You tell them that this is a change and you're going to do the change, but you don't understand that there's a lot of other things that happen in order for someone, you do, of course, because I'm not saying you, but companies a lot of times don't realize that there's so much that goes on just for someone to receive the message that you are giving them and then go, there's a whole journey that they take in order to get to where it is you're trying to take them.
Right.
And the study, when you do a little more digging, it says, hey, there's $3.9 trillion that goes into change initiatives. And 70% of that is like what, 2.7?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
2.7%, like $2.7 trillion is wasted.
Right.
And I think that's a staggering amount, right? And and I think that there's opportunity there, right? And to be able to now introduce classes, to be able to introduce things, to say that, hey, there's more than just your desire to get something to the people. There's an entire process. There's an entire ecosystem that needs to exist that I think a lot of leaders are now starting to realize.
I think you have to, like, and there are even some schools now that are offering some of those, to your point, like they're letting their students take IDI assessments and trained in IDI, things of that nature, to understand the communication piece and building culture and how do we interact with one another. And I think this generation is demanding it too. I think that's the difference as well. Our parents were taught just get a job and stay there forever, get a pension, and good job, good pension, retire. And we were taught you just gotta work until whatever, right? We pretty much had that same kind of work ethic.
Right.
But this new generation probably started with the millennials and then going those that came after them, that if it don't feel right at work, they don't want to work there.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
Right.
So I think first the challenge was, I've been doing this probably way too long. The challenge was generational. How do you get those baby boomers to work with Gen X? What was that different in worldview? And now you're seeing this worldview kind of progressively change at an exponential rate.
Right.
That the worldview was Gen Alpha now versus even Gen X is so different in what they expect and who they work with, how they work, what work looks like. What do you mean I got to go into an office every day? Why can't I just stay at home with my computer and work? So that is something that this generation is demanding, and not coincidentally, but they are also more attuned to their mental health as well.
Right.
That what mental health? It was do what you're told and don't ask no damn questions.
Right.
Now, I couldn't ask why.
Right.
Now without repercussions.
Right. We weren't taught.
We were not taught the word why. No.
Yeah, why was innate. You learned why on the road of doing what you were told to do. And if you didn't, so what? Still do what you were supposed to do or told to do. So now this generation, they need to know the why. They want to know the why.
Right.
And I think they relate to each other differently that way. So I think, again, part of that is naturally happening because of the generational differences. But if you're a business leader and you are not open to that and you don't see those changes, so kind of like when you saw where technology was going, you don't have that foresight and that vision to see that we've got to change how we do business, because if we don't, we're going to lose our workforce.
Right.
Because as baby boomers are now, they're not the biggest part of the population anymore. Gen X, I don't think we are either. I think it's millennials and below are the largest, the bulk of the population. That you're going to lose that workforce. They're not going to work for you. So you've got to find a way to do that. And that's not even including global economies changing, shifting from manufacturing to service to now experience even. I think that's a whole different conversation. But I think those are the things. That's why you see it happening now. That's why it's important. And I think I'm going to pivot now too. It's kind of led you to your latest project too, right? Tell us about your latest project. Tell us what it is. And how you got to that, how you bridge the gap. Notice how I use that how you bridge the gap. Bridge the gap from using your not only your work experience, but we haven't even talked about his entrepreneurial spirit. He's a serial entrepreneur as well.
Thank you.
So what you learn from working W-2 jobs, being an entrepreneur, and working with providing services to customers, your volunteer work, your community-based work, and how they kind of led you to the epiphany of what you're doing now.
Oh, wow. So the work that I'm doing now is called the Human-Centered Change Leader. I started it on LinkedIn, and it is a group, a think tank, if you will, of business leaders, practitioners, human resource managers, and chief people officers, and anybody that understands that the most important element of any business is not your product, is not your service, it's the people that work there. You can have the greatest product in the world, the greatest service in the world, but if you don't have the people, and the people are motivated and they understand, and there's a culture, and you understand the people, your product can only go but so far. So in my traversing all the various things that you mentioned, I realized that we need to center people and make them the nucleus of anything that we do. And if we don't do that, we're going to keep getting the same problem. So when I looked out into the industries and things like that, like we all are familiar with change management and the various change management methodologies and things like that, I realized that while they provide the foundation, there are at minimum 7 additional things that needs to happen in order to truly invest into the employee and not just make them a part of the change, but make them the nucleus of the change. So what I'm doing in the Human-Centered Change Leader, while it may seem small to say, hey, I know you're focusing on the organization, the communication, hey, we got to change, let's put this communication plan out there. How about let's talk to the people before we even put the communication out there, right? How about let's involve them into this change and let's see if they even need the change, right? So that's kind of like what the basis of it is there. Human-centered change management is not something that I created. It is a mixture of several different disciplines: employee experience, design thinking, system thinking, organizational development, neuroscience, behavioral science, right? And maybe a few others that I'm not mentioning at the time, but they all make the employee, it's all around the employee being the center. So an example, you can create the change, but how do we know the employee is ready for the change? How do we know how the employee thinks? Like we talked about Gen Alpha and Gen Z and Gen X, right? Even within that, they're not a monolith. So they all operate differently and they all think differently, right? So what human-centered change leadership is, and the understanding of neuroscience, it focuses on understanding the person and then being able to adapt to that person and to the people in order to get the change that you're hoping to get. Understanding the culture, understanding and creating a culture of learning, helping to ensure that, and when you do that, that helps with retention, that helps with productivity, that helps with motivation, that helps with so many things, right? And so that's what I'm doing. That's the Human-Centered Change Leader. It's new, but in the short time, there's been a demand. People are joining the group, and if you hear this, come join the group, Human-Centered Change Leader.
We'll make sure we put the link in our promotional items for the video as well.
Excellent.
For the podcast.
Excellent. So that's what I'm doing. And one of the questions, I know you didn't ask this, but I'll kind of pivot to this. One of the questions that people ask is, well, why do you put Human-Centered Change Leader? Isn't change management the same as Human-Centered Change Management? And my answer is, it is a part of change management, right? It's a part of human-centered change management where it creates the foundation. But when you look at a lot of the various methodologies, you'll realize that they don't always touch on all of the elements that I just mentioned. For instance, ADKAR or PROSI, right? That focuses on the individual employee and the things to kind of help them to change. But they don't look at how that plays into the entire organization, right? It doesn't look at the employee experience and how this will help the employee go to their whatever path they want to go on, right? And so I think that there are some amazing opportunities to be able to utilize given that area that I saw in the industry.
And I like it. Clearly I do. That's why I asked you to be on the show. When I saw the group and I saw how it's grown and the people who are joining, it's really shaping up to like a consortium of all those other disciplines, but almost even a clearinghouse that way you can share ideas. People can put their ideas out there. It's a venue to share some of those things and a venue to ask questions. I think that's what I see as the potential of it, that it's a way for people who may not have an ABA background. They're not behavioral scientists, but they're doing behavioral scientist work, but don't know they're doing behavioral scientist work, to possibly even pose a question or read an article or listen to a podcast from somebody who is a behavioral scientist.
Maybe.
Maybe. But I think that's the beauty of it too. And I think, again, to again use your analogy, not to beat a dead horse, but it really is like this is another example of you bridging that gap for something that you saw that you got all these disjointed, and they're not even all disjointed, because we can recognize what other industries are doing, but we still have our focus. And it's what we do. So even when, Natalie, I'm gonna use your book, like when reading your book, like you and your co-authors are very clear about this can mean this in other industries, but we're talking about this as far as the behavior sciences is concerned. I think what you put together, Ernest, is a group that says, but let's talk about what it means over there too, what the overlap is, how that overlap affects what we do, and make sure in all of that, we're keeping the person at the forefront during it's done. I appreciate the bridging the gap. I like what you're doing so far moving forward. I hope that we can help get you some more exposure.
Thank you.
Through this podcast. So I think it's definitely, if you haven't yet signed up, again, we'll put it lives on LinkedIn right now, right?
Right now, yes. But more's coming. More's coming.
Because he's also a web designer, so I'm pretty sure there's a website coming.
It is.
He's a man of many talents. So, I think that it's definitely a great resource for folks who are looking for, and sometimes we're looking for help and we don't know we need help. You see something that comes across your desk, you're like, oh, I didn't even consider that. I think this is one of those things that people can look to as a resource to help do what they do.
I mean, when you look at all the recent events, we all know about the mass layoffs, a casualty of that, right? That there is a aftermath that happens. And organizations are still trying to figure out like what to do now, right? Because there's a sense of even survivor's remorse. I talk about this in one of the newsletters, right? Like, how do you manage change after such a drastic event that happens, right?
It's our last episode, managing through chaos.
Exactly. I saw it. And I think that their work still has to go on, right? And the managers right now are not knowing what to do. It's like, do I just ignore it? Do I ignore the elephant in the room? No pun intended.
I almost got through the whole episode.
You never ignore the elephant in the room.
You never ignore the elephant in the room.
We almost got through the whole episode without a Greek reference.
Hey, listen.
But leave it to YouTube.
Yes.
And it's damn Coleman Love.
How did I get brought in? I was just a bystander.
She get the shot.
He knows it was for him.
But yeah, like, how do you address that elephant in the room? How do you manage change when people have anxiety and there's trust issues there? Like, but the work still has to go on, right? So those are the type of things that I'm exploring. There's some interest in that space, some potential opportunities in that space that I'm exploring, and hopefully I can lend my talents and be able to make the workplace a better place.
There you go. Yeah. Well, we thank you for coming on the show. Because even though I asked, you didn't have to say yes.
No, absolutely.
I appreciate it. Thank you for
Definitely,
coming on.
Yeah.
I think we definitely have some concentric circles about what we're doing, what we're trying to promote. And I think in the end, it's about making sure that folks really are feeling like they belong in the office, that they are appreciated, they're seen, and they're heard. So without even talking to each other about this, we're both started these human-centered type things, projects, shortly after, within months of each other, but with the same ultimate goal. So I think, again, thanks for being on. I think your project is great. Hope it grows. And I owe you a think piece for the LinkedIn group.
Yes,
so I'm acknowledging it.
Yes.
Putting it out there before you have to say it.
Recorded now. It is recorded.
And Natalie, you've been involuntarily volunteered as well.
Okay.
Yes.
So I've voluntold.
You've been voluntold to contribute as well.
I can do that. I will make a public commitment because behaviorally, we know it makes it more likely to happen.
Because you're a psychologist.
Yeah.
But no, man, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're probably at the end of our time now. So again, we like being in person. Natalie's in town. So I felt it's a great way to try to get some more people out and get some in on the show and spread some not just the knowledge of hearing me and Natalie and our banter, but getting other opinions and getting them out there as well. So
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So with that, remember, great leadership starts with belonging.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Belonging at the Top. We hope it sparked new ideas for fostering belonging in your leadership journey. If you found it insightful, please like and subscribe to our podcast for more thought-provoking discussions. We'd also love it if you could share it with others who might benefit from the conversation. If you have any feedback or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, please email us or drop us a note on Instagram